What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Christian Hannah Horror here today. I know it's been a little while, not been too terribly long, but been a little longer than usual. Just had a lot going on, but we're back, and today I'm doing a request. I had a request to review the Nightmare on Elm Street series, so I could just, tease you guys along and do one at a time. Have a seat, because we're going to do a review of the whole series, at least one through a certain number. You'll see where we stop. Not going to give you long, in-depth reviews. What you're going to hear is what I think of the movies, and that's pretty much it. My perspective on them, which ones I like the most, which ones I don't. Let's get started. A Nightmare on Elm Street, Part 1. This movie is seminal. It is, a part of American history. It's probably going to be in the film preservation, of American, whatever, the American Film Preservation Society, whatever it's called. It's probably going to end up in there. This movie is a classic, an absolute treasure. This is one of the greatest horror movies ever made by one of the most legendary horror movie directors. There has been nothing like Freddy Krueger ever. I mean, and the movie itself it's still good. It's still scary. It's a great movie, and it's crazy to think it was a low budget film because it feels like a huge blockbuster production. It really does. This movie started it all, and it's a seminal movie. I'd say, to me, this is up there with Halloween. It really is. I've said it before, I've said it again. Nightmare on Elm Street is my favorite series of them all. I do love the Nightmare on Elm Streets more than anything, for the creativeness of these movies, for just the enjoyment. It's very eye appealing, and it's a very fun movie, and the soundtrack is also legendary. Legendary. So, as far as this movie goes, obviously, I'm not going to sit here and tell you what it's about. You all know what it's about, but this is, the greatest, one of the greatest horror movies of all time, without a doubt. Moving along, excuse that. Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddys Revenge. I have been unapologetic about praising this film. I absolutely adore this film. Some people hate it, and that's fine. It's all, at the end of the day, it's all a matter of opinion. If I say this is the best film, don't take it as matter of fact. It's an opinion. If somebody says Part 2 sucks, that doesn't necessarily mean it does. It's all art, and it's all up for opinion. Everything is. It's just, what you like and what I like. But moving along, without blabbing too much about it, this movie to me is the scariest of them all. It truly is. The whole deal. I think a lot of us, when we first saw this movie, especially like for me, I did not necessarily pick up on the whole, the whole gay theme until they really talked about it. Now, some of you probably picked on it right away, but when I watched this movie, I mean, this is one of the first horror movies I really remembered watching in recent years. When I first became this movie was the catalyst for my horror addiction. It was when I first started watching horror movies. When I first decided, okay, I'm gonna start watching all these classic horror movies. This was the first one. This was it right here. And this movie, it scared the hell out of me. At 18 years old, 19 years old, hadn't been really, hadn't seen too much horror. So when I watched this movie just got me. This movie fired on all cylinders for me. Edge of my seat. Freddy is the scariest looking in this movie to me than any of them. He's just horrifying looking in this movie. I just absolutely love this movie. And now that I see and I can pick up on all the gay themes, I think it makes it even scarier because, like Robert Englund said, it's like Freddy really represents the self, like the taunt of everything, and just, it's really good. Now, it's not a very well-made film. You'll notice that they reuse shots in different parts of the movies and things like that. But, this movie is a classic in its own right, and it's a great addition in the series, and it's my personal favorite. So that's Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. Next, we have an excellent film. This here is A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Masters. So we get out of Part 2, and, things already were confusing because you had this movie that followed this really fine line about a set of rules about Freddy being a dream monster, but in Part 2 you see Freddy coming into the real world. So I can see the reason that there was a 2-year gap between 2 and 3. I think 3 came out in 87, 2 was 85. Yeah, 87. So I could see that, a good year of this was spent figuring out what the hell are we going to do, and they ended up, there is a right or a wrong way to go about it, because like I said, it's all art and it's all just, it is what it is. I think it is safe to say in my opinion, they went in the right direction with part 3. They're really, you got to think about like this. 3 is really one of the most important films in this series because of the job it had. It had to not only be a successful film in the box office, but get this series back on track for the ability to have more returns in the future, meaning being able to make more movies. 3 is a phenomenal film from A to Z. The cast is excellent. I can't remember, or I can't really think of another film that adds more characters into a movie with original characters that we already know and love, and been able to balance it so well as this movie has. You truly get a sense of every character in this movie, and you do care about them all. I mean, they're all great characters. Lawrence Fishburne, even. All the characters in this movie are fantastic. You don't see that in horror movies a lot either. That's another thing about Nightmare on Elm Street, is that they, in my opinion, they have a history of rich characters and great characters that you know and love. So that's one thing I really do love about the Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warriors. And I am a die-hard Dokken fan. So this is the reason I found out about the band through this movie, and I have since, been a huge fan ever since, got their whole discography. And that's another beautiful thing about these movies, is they can lead you to different things and finding these bands and things like this. So it's because of Nightmare on Elm Street that I know who Dokken is. And I love, like I said, love Dokken now. So, but this movie is really incredible. The imagination of this movie, and it blends, it's like 20%, actually I wouldn't even say it, it's more like 10% funny with the way Freddy is, but 90% still just scary as hell. So this movie is great, really great, and it gets very imaginative without really making you say, that's a little too much. Like, it really does ride a fine line, but steers clear of that line. So this movie is incredible. I can't think of a flaw from it. So love Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. Next is Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, and to sum it up kind of quite blankly, or quite, frankly, this movie is exactly the tone I think it should have had. And you had characters. It really was, risky to see what they did. Well, we'll talk about it in 5, but, in 4 you have the characters continuing over. And you got to think about this before I even get into this. This movie already had something going against it. You had a character being portrayed by a different actor in this movie, so that always gets like, oh, really? Why couldn't the same person play it? It's like you'll focus on that, and it kind of takes you away from the storytelling. But I didn't seem to really have that problem with this movie, and I don't know whether that's a compliment I should give to Rennie Harlan, the director, or Tuesday Knight, the actor. Probably a little bit of both, but the fact that the Arquette girl, Patricia, did not play the character in this movie, and it doesn't really seem to affect it. I think it's a rare thing, and it's a very good thing. This movie, like I said, I think it really rides the correct tone, making it a little bit more open and light. And that's another thing. When I say light, I mean that in the metaphoric sense and also the literal sense. There's not a lot of nighttime in this movie. Like, when I mean by that is like in Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, a lot of the deaths and stuff are happening at night when people are going to sleep, and it has a darker look to the film. This film is very bright and colorful, and people are falling asleep in broad daylight. And this movie is it's full of light and color, and it's energetic, and it's fun, and it's perfect. Like, I know I sound like I'm just like a broken record because I've pretty much called all these movies perfect, but really, in my opinion, this movie is awesome. I love Part 4. Is it my favorite? No, but it's definitely one of them. Like, I have a Part 4 poster right here. I have a Dream Warriors poster, a Dream Child poster. Like, I love the Nightmare on Elm Street series. Every film so far that we've talked about, I have given you my honest opinion. I just love these movies. Even the death, the way he with the seeing himself in the mirror, it's like it works and it's cool. I like that. So just a great film. Love this one, really do. So next we are on Dream Child. This is where things start to really get interesting because we have gone down multiple avenues now with Freddy Krueger with different stories and different characters. So we do get to the returning Alice character, who is, I think, a fan favorite. I think a lot of people really like the Alice character in here. This movie took a more adult theme. Their reasoning was, I think, that they thought, okay, a lot of the Nightmare on Elm Street fans now are growing up, and they need a more something they can relate to. I guess, I don't know, but you know what? Could they have maybe had a better concept for this? Possibly. I think that's a fair assessment. But you know what? This is what it is. It's the Dream Child. Some things are a little unorganized in the way. From what I understand, you're supposed to believe that Freddy's supposed to be the father of this kid, which doesn't really make sense. But then it's not. It's like it's Dan's kid, but I don't know. It's slightly confusing, when you read stuff, but watching the movie. But as far as the movie goes, taking it on its own merit and its content. The director of this movie did a very good job. They tried. This is not an easy thing to do, and it's really, almost inevitable for people to say, well, it's not going to be scary because we've seen Freddy in a tuxedo, and we've seen Freddy, with putting sunglasses on the beach. So it's like, how do you make him scary again? But you know what? They did a damn good job with not necessarily trying to make it more scary, but darker toned. And almost like a gothic look. And, it was a good element that fit Freddy, in my opinion. A lot of the dream worlds with, like, being in the castle with the flooded water and, things like that. Really great scenery, really great imaginative scenes in this movie, especially when you see Freddy, the father of Freddy, apparently, which was played by Robert Englund in the insane asylum with all these people. That was really bizarre, but that was a really cool scene. So as far as like the images and the way the movie looks, it's great. As far as the subject matter, it's a little strange, but these movies all are rather strange to begin with. But this is a good movie. It's not the best one in the series, but I love this one. This is actually one of my favorite ones. And there's something about the way movies seemed and were in the year 1989. That year and the look and the style of culture in that day and that time is one of my favorite looks and styles, and especially for filmmaking, just the way it looks. So with this being filmed in '89, I'm definitely partial to it. But obviously, this is a great film this is a great addition to the films, and it's never one you should pass over when you're watching this series. So, Nightmare on Elm Street 5 is a great addition, so I love it. Small gripes on that, but nothing really hardcore. Freddys Dead, The Final Nightmare. I've talked about this movie before. I'm a big advocate for this movie. It's a great film. When you think about it, some people say, I wish they would have went into a scarier tone. But when you think about it, really, like, most people probably, and my line of thinking was, well, if you tried to make it scary, people would just say, well, it's like nothing. I mean, it can't be scary because we've already, like I said, we've seen Freddy in a tuxedo and all this. But I like this movie, and I have a great new appreciation for this film. A great new appreciation because the woman who directed this, her name's Rachel Talalay. She had said that when this movie came out, the Twin Peaks show had just had been released not too long ago, and it was a huge successful show, and they really were fans of the show, and they used them as a huge influence for the style and the sound and the look of this film. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And just recently, me and Sydney, we watched Twin Peaks, and now I see it. I really do see the way the style for this movie was really influenced from that show, and I have such a huge new appreciation and love for this film because of that show. It's a fabulous show if you haven't seen Twin Peaks. And it's a great show that blends, like serious subject matter with good characters that can be funny. Not scenes that are just funny, but characters that have, strange personalities and things like that. And you'll see it if you've watched this show. And like I said, now I have a huge appreciation for this show. So if you haven't seen it, definitely check out Twin Peaks and then watch Freddys Dead and see if you watch this film differently. Another huge plus for me is I'm a hardcore Alice Cooper fan, and it was great seeing him play the father of Freddy in this film. So I love Freddys Dead. I really do. I love the soundtrack. I have the soundtrack to this movie on vinyl and cassette, and the soundtrack is killer. Goo Goo Dolls, a lot of great bands. I can't remember them off my head, but the songs on that album are great. And that's another thing I've loved about the Nightmare on Elm Street series is they've all had great killer soundtracks. Not necessarily songs that you'll hear in the movies, but the soundtracks that have been released have been phenomenal, and that's another plus. So Freddys Dead is awesome. I love this film. I'm really trying to think of a serious gripe. I have it, but my thing is I always try to take movies on their own merit, and with all these films, I have appreciated them from that standpoint. So I can't really think of anything I really dislike about Freddys Dead. The makeup maybe could have been a little bit, I don't want to say better, but a little bit. I wish they would have kind of stayed with the look of 5, with the darker kind of tone to the skin. He was very light and almost fleshy, but it works, and that's the way the film is, and that's the way I now love and appreciate it. So maybe if the whole film was in 3D back in the day, that would have been cooler, but that's not something I could have even seen. I was a baby when the movie came out. So, but that's Freddys Dead. So far, all these films for me are great, additions and movies you shouldn't pass up. And the last movie we're going to review is New Nightmare. This movie is kick-ass. I think, if you were going to have to add another movie, it would have to be a great concept after doing a movie called Freddys Dead. It's basically saying, okay, I don't think you can be more literal, have more literal of a title to end a series than Freddys Dead. But, if this is the movies, anything can happen. And New Nightmare is great. New Nightmare is a great film. Wes Craven really did a great job. The only thing I don't like about New Nightmare is, and this is a small gripe, to me, it feels like it drags a little bit. It really does. And that just could be my perception of the film. And it maybe is because it doesn't feel like the Nightmare on Elm Street series to me, in the sense of the loud noises and the quick shots from the dream worlds and stuff like that. I don't feel that so much from this movie. There are instances from it, of course, like especially when the hand in the beginning of the movie, when they're doing when Wes is directing the Nightmare on Elm Street sequel in the movie, the hand moving and everything, it's quick and it's poppy, but it doesn't feel like the over the top cinematography and fast shots and stuff that you feel from the rest of the series. And that's not necessarily a gripe. I guess it's, I do like that style of filmmaking that they did, like more so in parts 4 and 5, in the way the movies were made. And it kind of is a slowed down pace in this. But other than that, this is one hell of a ride. New Nightmare is a good film. It's a shame that this movie didn't do too great box office wise. I think it definitely was profitable, but it wasn't doing the multi-millions I think they wanted to. I think because when they saw Freddys Dead, the Final Nightmare, people took it seriously. So that's the only other thing. Plus, it came out in '94, so horror was kind of dying at that point. But as far as an addition to the series, it's a breath of fresh air. If you've binged a bunch of Nightmare on Elm Streets and then you want to keep them going, this one has a different tone, in my opinion. So it is a breath of fresh air, especially going through a marathon style watching these movies. But as far as these movies go, I adore all of these. That's where I'm going to stop it off at. I'm not going to do Freddy vs. Jason and all that. That, to me, is the Nightmare on Elm Street series. So excellent franchise. It's the only franchise where I really don't have a major gripe or think any of the movies suck. I really don't. Call me a fanboy, whatever, but that's my opinion on it, and I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it. I challenge you to do a Nightmare on Elm Street series review, and you talk about all the movies. I'd love to get you guys' thoughts on them, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a comment and tell me what you think. That's going to be it for now. We'll have some great stuff coming up soon. A slight update: I did get approved for a house loan, so now I'm just looking, and we're going to get that ball rolling as soon as we can, and we're going to make the greatest horror room we can. So I'm excited about that. But that's it. I gotta stop myself from rambling on. This is Christian Hannah Horror. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see y'all next time.